We're on now, Ed.
Wonderful. That joke won't fly then.
Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here, CEO and co-founder of the LA Ignite, and I'm here with Ed Fowler, and we're going to talk about artificial intelligence.
Excellent. Hi, folks. Ed Fowler here again. AI expert, apparently. Probably AI loudmouth is a more likely thing.
Well, I was on a podcast yesterday, and we got about 3/4 of the way through, and they said, "Can we talk about AI?" And what it was they noticed that in the name of my company there's an A in the I, so they therefore thought I was an AI expert.
Everybody wants.
But there again, I talked for 15 minutes about AI, so it's everything that I've learned from this.
Happy day.
So and that's so. The reason why we run this, and we're running it until July, is really to educate. This is we're not selling anything. What we want to do is we want to increase the knowledge of everybody. There's loads of rubbish out there about AI.
We cut down the fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah.
And makes the progress.
And so if there's any questions that you've got, put them in the chat. We'll answer them. Anything that you want to do, any subjects that you want us to talk about. We do have 2 subjects that we want to talk about, but if there's anything that you want to pick up on, then and the 2 articles that we want to discuss are actually, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, they're at the bottom. They're in the chat.
Yeah.
Thing.
Excellent. Yeah. Anything you want, folks, please reach out. We'll certainly address it if we can.
Yes.
So we were going to talk about first of all that guy who's trained an AI to play computer games with, which is a genuinely quite fascinating first article. Which is the guy who's basically stuck an AI on top of his Dreamcast model, and the AI watches his face and can interpret what he's playing from. Which is
it's the Verge article.
Yeah, that's the
one. And Lance Carr, whose gaming handle is called Gimpy G, he suffers from muscular dystrophy, and Google, I think they're doing a bit of a PR thing.
They are. They've spent some money on
it. It's open source AI, and he can play his game with his face.
Now, this is quite interesting because it's not the typical thing. This isn't just looking at someone's emotional state and going happy, sad, which is pretty easy, by the way. It's just relationship between eyes. It's not really an AI. They can gauge intent from this. This isn't just happy, sad. This is go left, go right, go up, go down, go do that. It's multiple actions. And the AI isn't just responding to his face. They are predicting what his face needs to say. Now, this is a fascinating one. And like many things in AI, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. On the plus side, you've got people like that guy Lance, whose physical condition means that playing games he's loved is a challenge because he can't control his hands to the same level. And that's real problematic. So you can imagine that tools like this can be used to give people who have potentially profound disabilities or even slight disabilities a new way of interacting with the world. So that somebody, say, for example, who's got Bell's palsy or a palsy, cerebral palsy, can't work with their hands in the same way. They've now got new interaction capabilities. They may be able to control the television. They may be able to control effectively a very digital world. If somebody who is potentially, one of the use cases I read out was somebody who was potentially even semi-locked in, you can now use very subtle cues on the human face to actually interact with them and talk with them. And one of the fascinating use cases was neonatal care. This can understand to a degree what a baby means and what is upsetting them. Now, they may have a lot of conceptual stuff, but this is a fascinating area that using the similar technology, you can interrogate a baby's face and work out what the baby is trying to tell you, even when they haven't got words or even concepts to tell you what's going on. And the AI can intercede and predict what the challenge is. Now, that's a fascinating area of machine learning stuff. Now, on the flip side, this is where it gets a lot darker. Now, we can get, like the Chinese have got gigapixel cameras that just look at public spaces. Technologies like this can categorize every single human face they see and not just describe if this person is happy or sad based on crude facial dimensions, but what their intent is.
It was used at the coronation.
It was, but not quite as darkly as it could be. The one they used at the coronation was, let's put it blindly, lies.
And it was used at a Beyonce concert in Cardiff.
Also lies. That's theater of security. Yeah, we've got these cameras, got AI. Don't do anything. The AI will look at you. It doesn't work. They haven't got that yet. This tool set, though, gives them an opportunity to analyze other things. They're not looking for criminals. Why bother looking for a criminal? You can spot the criminal because they're trying to do something.
They've got a black and white T-shirt on and a bag that says swag.
Yeah, essentially. What they're looking for, though, is somebody that is quietly raging. Is somebody that has an intentful purpose. Somebody that's going to make a decision about something. And you can ascribe them a degree of outcomes, initially based on facial expressions, because the cameras can see them. But later on, the same technology that was used for this game can interrogate the way that somebody walks and their stride pattern. And you combine it to these things, this technology that effectively is nascently called artificial emotional intelligence starts to map and interrogate emotional states and to predict which decision they're going to make. So first of all, you've got an AI that's identifying patterns of criminals. Relatively straightforward. You can do that right now. Then you've got one that this technology implements. You can start understanding intent. Do they mean left or right? Are they likely to go walk over there or over there? Then with this over on top, you can combine that with what you think their emotion is. And you can start making predictive behaviors on mass crowd events. Now, you could say that's relatively benign. You can spot for terrorists or whatever in these criminal things, or bag snatch or something. But actually, the technology is much easier to use as a coercive control because you can start triggering adverts around public spaces to do and interact things. You can start shaping their interaction rather than just observing it. And that becomes quite a lot more concerning. Now, one of our perennial things is going to be regulation of AI over these conversations, and regulation of AI, for good or bad, will have to take place. The current model probably not going to do what we need, given that AI is metasizing. There are open source models that I can download and train on a laptop or on a phone.
Because you've said that you can basically get an AI on a
USB stick.
On a USB stick. Yeah. So even if they said you can't have it, it's a bit like when the states say we're going to ban TikTok. Yeah. And people will just drive down to Mexico and download it and then drive back again, won't they?
Or stick a VPN. But in this case, it's going to be more. It's completely banned. Well, you just hand somebody a USB stick. It's sure. I don't need to be online for this thing. This thing works right now.
You can go down, certain places in San Francisco and go, "Can I have a USB stick?
Can I buy an AI?"
Yeah,
basically. And that degree of sort of prohibited AI behaviors is going to be a real area of debate. Regulation of AI is going to be challenging. You're going to get AIs regulating AIs within no time at all. And we end up out of something like a William Gibson novel. But I think in this case, you're going to take this area the story opens up, which is this artificial emotional intelligence area, is going to be quite fascinating. We've devoted a lot of time to talking about artificial general intelligence, which is kind of can do any use case. And ChatGPT is very good at literary use cases, not good at maths or whatever, no matter which bits have been bolted into it. But artificial emotional intelligence, which Google have got quite a good thing with their Palm 2, which is open source. But actually, the latest builds of Alpaca are pretty good at as well, can be trained fairly easily. They can start doing some quite profound insights into you. And they can almost effectively be used to steal a concept from a Alistair Reynolds series of novels. They could almost be used like a beta simulation of you. So one of the darkest or most profound use cases for this is I set up an AI that's designed to be as close to Tim Hughes as possible. And I use that AI to predict your behavior.
Right.
Now that means this idea of you had like FBI profilers and all this type of stuff. The AI you effectively use as the proxy for the person. Now that's got its own hideous series of ethical whatevers, and do you accidentally trigger whatever. But that's a really interesting level because that's going to play back into gaming as well. So your game avatar becomes more and more like you because it watches you play games and it watches you through the camera. Your police are interrogating you. Your tax authority has an AI, which is either Ed Fowler or Ed Fowler Corp or is, I don't know, Vodafone. Those use cases for AI, which combine emotional intelligence and to a degree just general purpose, are going to be where a huge level of stuff is going to come through. And I can certainly see that as a fascinating area of growth that's going to be triggered by simple capabilities like I can steer a game with my face. and the game predicts what I mean. And it's so profound.
If you're watching this, the Verge article is really good. Even if you just page right down to the video,
yeah,
it's one of those where you'll wipe away a tear at the it's professional Google made, and you'll wipe away a tear at the end of it. But it's just getting the story over of Lance and the fact that his house burnt down and all his gear, he lost all his gear.
Stunning.
And then off the back of that, this guy's got muscular disc and he's playing games and he's just.
Yeah, it's impressive. And it's, again, the AI understands you, and the AI will grow. It's not like this is a one-off and done thing. The AI gets better at its job the longer you interact with it. And that's one of the things, the big changes between previous attempts at this, which are kind of, here is a tool, Tim, you learn how to use the tool. To now, here is a tool, Tim, the tool learns how to interact with you. And it kind of reverses the who's learning bit. You have a tool, we all learn how to use it. That's dead. This means the tool learns how to use you. And that leads us quite onto our second story.
Yes. So Stack Overflow traffic has dropped.
Yeah.
No, I don't know what Stack Overflow is.
So Stack Overflow is a crutch for engineers, software engineers. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm gonna Google frantically. I can't find anything. Oh my God. I'll put a question on Stack Overflow. I'll search for an example on Stack Overflow. Now, Stack Overflow is either a great resource that helps speed up delivery because you can't know everything, or it's a pretty strong indicator that your engineering team has got some weakness in it. I have used it as a diagnostic, is how many times they reached out in a week.
So Ed does have a login.
Oh God, yeah. I'm a terrible engineer. No, I make no bones about it. I'm an architect, mate. That ability to reach out to what is a core source of engineering advice has been a strong indication. Stack Overflow is a relatively large business. It's regarded as one of the sort of primary resources on the world, no matter how challenging its community can be. But what has happened is that trade has started to drop, and it coincidentally targets up with the release of Copilot for GitHub.
So in the article, it says it's been dropping 6% each month since January 2022.
Yeah.
But it dropped 13.9% in March of 2023.
And that's carried on to last month, my understanding.
Yeah.
So that means that...
Which is we'll know something got launched around about that time.
Yeah, which is the Copilot launch that started to get useful. And Copilot sits and helps you code.
Right.
Now, I have a hypothesis that the code that it produces is not great. Much of the problem with AI-produced code is it's kind of middle of the road. It's statistically trying to guess what you're going to do next. And it's a better search engine. The code comes out, it's kind of flabby. Nothing wrong with that. Copilot by itself can produce code as good as the average teenage coder. It doesn't produce code as good as a highly motivated, experienced engineer in their mid-20s or 30s. So there is a gap. It does accelerate you in producing verbiage. So if used tightly, you could say it helps the engineer focus on the bit that they need to be, which is the actual differential logic. Which is this logic that I'm having to focus on? But what's actually happening, they're going, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. The requirements are a bit wobbly. I'll hammer some stuff into the Copilot, and the Copilot is just give me a solution. And I'll click submit, because one of the problems it has is Copilot is very good at producing code that passes the test, not necessarily good at producing code that answers the requirement.
Right.
It's kind of like, now, in a perfect world, the test should be the dominant. In fact, you should write the test before you write the requirement. You should be moving towards test-driven design and then behavioral-driven design and all sorts of stuff. But what tends to happen is the test is slapped together. People go, oh, great, and create the code that just passes the test. Now, this is going to be some fascinating areas, because you're going to get essentially what's called like an AI arms race. You're going to have AIs producing code. And then in the support teams, you're going to get AIs doing support calls, and later on site reliability engineering is going to be strongly AI leveled. So you're going to be calling AIs who are potentially, we don't really know what their incentivization model in this is, creating more and more code that just passes tests. And you've got AIs in the support calls handling more and more calls automatically. And you can get this weird synergy that, because you've got two slightly mistuned AI incentive models, they're just generating more and more traffic. what you're going to have is the world's busiest coding team producing huge amounts of semi-articulate code. And you're going to have a support organization that's handling billions of support calls automatically. But in general, your code base just gets bigger. It doesn't get better.
Yeah.
That's where the challenge has been. So my challenge has always been with the use of Copilot. It's in the wrong part of the engineering value chain. AIs aren't very good at code, no matter what anybody says. They just aren't. You can say, and there's people give me, oh, Ed, what about this example? Great, it does a bit of code. Try making that productionizable. Yeah. AIs, however, are really, really good at articulating a requirement in such a way that you can structure it. So an AI is really quite decent at writing Gherkin script. Now, Gherkin script is a structured language for expressing a behavioral change in a way that you can hang tests off it. And essentially, it grew out of the scripting languages used for automated testing. So you can specify your requirement quite nicely. You could have an interaction with an AI and chat to it quite conversationally, and it produces pretty decent structured requirements. That's a great use case for an AI. That's brilliant. It removes one of the biggest backlogs in getting good requirements through, which is the articulation and testing stage. AI is quite decent at that. What they aren't good at is turning that into code. Now people go, but it's semi-structured here, Ed. Great. And the gap is logic. AIs aren't good at logic. They've got access to Wolfram Alpha and all that type of stuff. Wolfram Alpha is not great at logic either. It's good at answering questions about maths. It's not good at logic. And the whole art of being an engineer is logic. So the use case you can say is this is a strong diagnostic. And what I'd be looking at is what are my teams using Copilot for? And what are the teams looking at Stack Overflow for? And that's a good diagnostic. You can start getting a really interesting debate with your engineers and your product owners that's going to have profound value. It does mean in other areas, though, because you can use this as a diagnostic, that more and more people are using Copilot to do stuff with, which means then you're going to end up with this sort of flood of lower quality code and apps, which is going to have some implications. It's probably going to tie back into customer trust at some point. So that's kind of an interesting area that's already we're seeing behavioral shifts that's got impacts. Now, that impact on Stack Overflow means that advertising revenue is going to go down relatively rapidly, and they're an advertising funded site.
Well, we're in a situation, aren't we, where disrupt or be disrupted.
Yeah, there is no way around it.
If you're not disrupting, you're being disrupted. Because and there are people out there who are going to be younger than me who have grown up with iPads and a bit of AI who are going to have completely different views on the world about how they disrupt and what an application should look like or should work.
I think what it says today, an app which you put together with a small team could be a great app, could be a poor app. It's kind of like drawing a picture with a crayon. Yeah, it can be quite a profound picture, but it's still drawn with a crayon. What you're going to be able to get now is if you had smart engineering teams, their ability to execute is just going up. You're not kind of looking at a couple of percent a quarter, like 10, 20% a quarter better. That means that the sort of apps and experiences and capabilities of the future are kind of more like a Renoir or kind of more like a Titian. The scope and vision, they may be as equally as profound in the idea you're trying to get across, but the scale and quality of their execution are going to be profoundly different. The core differential is going to be, it doesn't matter if you're presenting this drawn with a crayon or by a Flemish old master. The idea you're trying to represent is still, the core creativity is still important, because there can be some beautifully executed paintings that are less profound than a cave painting on the wall in the soap. And that is going to be where the differential and the disruption is. If your ideas and vision are good, you've now got more easy routes to market than you had before. Your ideas, if they are still good, are still going to make an impact. So the ability to disrupt is now the differential. A lot of what we're hearing is either you're disrupting or you're going to be disrupted. And people are focusing on the I'm going to be disrupted bit. What they're not actually hearing is the first part is you can use this to disrupt massively more easily than you are going to be disrupted. Now, if you're just a business that's going la 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 and doing nothing, then yeah, you're going to be disrupted. But the moment you start down the journey of embracing this, your ability to do changes is just going up. You don't necessarily need coders. The AI can produce perfectly working code. It just might not be very good, but it works, and it might be better than no code or no app. And that's where you could start today. If you were a small scale retailer, you could be getting your sustainability efforts off the ground using this. If you were an online seller, you could be producing much richer marketing copy. If you were trying to create new products, you've now got an easy source of analytics to suggest ideas. That's all available to you right now at almost zero cost.
Yeah.
So that disrupt bit becomes way easier.
Yes.
The disrupt bit is only do nothing.
Well, Ed, thank you so much for coming on and for that.
Kind of a rant from me this week.
I think well, I would have, if it wasn't valuable, I would have stopped it. So if I'm kind of feeling if I'm learning something, it's educational, and that's what we're about. So thank you again. I mean, they're two fascinating subjects. The one about the Project Game Face from Google. I just think it's just amazing.
It's amazing and huge potential for good and bad on that one. So Tim, great to speak to you.
Thank you so much, Ed, and Andrew. Thank you for tuning in, and if there's anybody else tuning in, we'll be back again. I think are we back again in 2 weeks' time?
2 weeks' time, I think we are.
We are, right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
See you soon. Thanks. Bye.